I'm very interested in forgiveness today, and I'd like to ask, why is forgiveness even important? And what is the function of forgiveness in our lives, and how can it benefit us? So why it's important, actually the mechanics of forgiveness, and how it benefits us.
All right. You'll probably have to help
Sure.
lead me through this.
So first it's about forgiveness, and why is it important in our life?
Well, apparently first we're going to kind of get a definition of what is forgiveness.
Great.
And the indication that the definition or whatever is going to come up now is going to cover a few bases, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, forgiveness. Well, I definitely get the feeling that what is forgiveness? The indication is that forgiveness is more about the individual who is forgiving, who is doing the forgiving, than it is the person that is being forgiven. There's also an impact there, but the impact that we would know as an individual who is doing the forgiving, we're the ones who will be able to feel what a profound impact it can have on us. The word they're bringing up is it releases us.
Mm-hmm.
It releases us from an emotional prison. That's strong.
Okay.
So forgiveness can release us from an emotional prison when we do the forgiving of someone else. Forgiving is being able to genuinely, truly, like deeply, like honestly, I guess you'd say, let go of the challenging emotions associated with a person, an action, an event that usually revolves around another person. And being able to truly have the trigger of remembering, running into that individual, having a trigger around that individual, no longer bring up the prison of emotions in us. That's the ultimate success story, they're saying. That's the ultimate goal that can be reached, that demonstrates how forgiveness will set us free, as well as have, and so this part is where I'm seeing an energetic wah, 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 go out from the person who's doing the forgiving toward the individual who is forgiven. The individual, and I've actually seen this when forgiveness has gone on between a client and a loved one of theirs who is crossed. When the client forgives genuinely, forgives the individual who has already crossed over, who has died, who is there in spirit now, I can feel the client's release and that it gives them. They are able to step out of that emotionally triggered prison that was there before, and the person who has passed, I can feel it. How do I describe this? It almost hits them like an energy wave, I guess you'd say, keeping in mind that I'm seeing an image that is representative of their spirit, because they have already crossed over in spirit. It kind of hits them, and often will. It allows them to forgive themselves. That's the big impact of that. When they really can take in a genuine forgiveness from someone they have harmed or feel they have harmed, if they can take in that forgiveness, it really allows them to forgive themselves for whatever it is that they did. And some of the stuff can be pretty bad. And so it brings the forgiveness from the first person starts a cascade of forgiveness that kind of raises everyone's energy level, but the sense of relief and release, and I can forgive myself, that is what's really the significance of forgiveness. It's not always easy.
For sure. So what is the typical mechanics or the practical application if somebody is trapped in that prison, to actually step into forgiveness?
Mm-hmm. Apparently, there is more than one way to do that to reach a state of true forgiveness, and that kind of depends on the individual and what works for them. Um, uh, but the override that is in terms of the approach to forgiveness and the follow through of forgiveness. There may be individual ways that is accomplished, but what happens for everybody apparently is I'm just going to say the image that they're showing you. We can figure it out later. It's almost like the issue is brought right in front of your face. This is probably a symbolic explanation. Mm-hmm. The issue or the person is brought right in front of your face, and you as the person who is hoping to forgive, it triggers the emotions and emotional response that has become a habit by this point in time. And so that it triggers that in that individual. However, that individual is has moved themselves into the position of an observer, you might say. So they're watching themselves. They aren't getting caught up in the emotion. They recognize, they're aware the emotion is happening, but they're observing it from outside, where they recognize that it is simply an emotion, if that makes sense. Like nothing is happening to that individual right now. Right. This is a memory, an emotion. They are not in jeopardy at the moment. And then they actually, does everybody feel that? That people may feel this to different levels. Some people may miss the feeling. Some people may feel it a lot. They have compassion for themselves. This all goes very fast, but it can go very fast, or it may be separated into steps. They have compassion for themselves. That compassion for themselves allows them to release those energies, to release those feelings, so that it's like they go away, like they aren't...
Like they're resolved.
They're resolved. Very good word for that. And so, so that has happened. The emotions are gone. Then it's almost like they're able to look at the other person and not be triggered, not have those emotions come up again. They're able to see the other person as a flawed individual. We're all flawed individuals, and have compassion for that, for the perpetrator, for the one who has harmed them in some way, or at least their perception of harm. And it's that compassion thing that seems to do all the work. Right. Compassion for yourself, and then they're able to have compassion for the other individual and see, it just feels good. It just feels good. And so it's that two-step compassion for self, which you may not even realize is going on. Compassion, like pure compassion for the other individual. There's nothing lurking behind it anymore of fear or angst or anger or anything like that. It's
almost acceptance. It's kind of an acceptance, or
it's an acceptance in the sense of the events were real, but the emotion around it has dissipated.
Right.
And they're saying, and it's a reality check of what is real in the moment. That it's not going on in the moment, those emotions don't belong in that moment, and that sort of thing, so that they really are resolved and let go. It's kind of like let go. So when the individual looks at the perpetrator, they're able to see that individual as have compassion for them as a flawed individual, and not get triggered again. Apparently that is true forgiveness, but that's also, they're explaining how the energy of compassion works on the individual, which apparently was the first thing we talked about, as well as that energy of compassion releasing the perpetrator as well. They're having an effect on the perpetrator.
It seems that if someone is holding a grudge and or is not working towards forgiveness, that again, like we're being told, you're in a prison, and a potential strategy is to look at your life as more...
Can I say something here? Because they're bringing up... Okay, what comes up that it's really important for us to know is forgiveness of an individual does not mean that you
Right.
see that everything's fine from here on. The acceptance of the kind of like facts of what is real, the facts of what was real in the past, uh, does not change. You know, you have to, it isn't like, oh, that never happened. That is not the case at all. The true forgiveness allows us to stay in a place of reality, you might say, in terms of another person. So the example is, somebody is still alive and they were a perpetrator. You, the individual, is able to forgive that person. However, you don't, and the forgiveness can have an impact on the perpetrator. Going forward, it does not mean the individual is naive or delusional about, oh, everything's safe now. They still can act with care in terms of the reality if this individual may still be dangerous in some way. Even if it's just in a, like, they always talk mean to me kind of thing. It's nothing scary necessarily, just something that doesn't make us feel very good. If we can kind of like put up, or walk into that situation, or immediately do the shields up kind of thing, where we simply are protecting ourselves by seeing what the reality is of that individual. So they're not able, so we would say, so they're not able to hurt us anymore. We're actually putting up a protection barrier between ourselves and someone we are still not quite sure whether they have changed or not.
Right.
But the forgiveness is still there. They recognize, the individual recognizes the circumstance for what it is. I'm able to forgive you. The past doesn't bother me, but I'm not necessarily going to be naive and take ridiculous chances.
Yep, for sure. So if we don't forgive, if we literally don't step into that, what is a typical outcome? They refer to it as a prison. What does that look like in somebody's life? What does that prison look like?
There was an image of bars, and interestingly, the bars were around this part of a person's. These are invisible. This is symbolic. But when the image of prison came up, it was like big black metal bars in front of us, which, of course, separates us. It's a barrier between us and what is real going out there. There's a level of protection, I guess you'd say, and that's why they just talked about we don't want to be delusional in forgiveness, but we have a different way of protecting ourselves from it that comes up as radiant light, as opposed to the prison bars. So the prison bars block us from, it's almost like they shut us down when we have this emotional reaction to whatever the trigger is from thinking about the perpetrator or whatever.
Does it literally keep us in that experience at that point?
It keeps us like, yes, it does. And it's like everything that's going on around you that's real, you aren't even seeing that.
Yeah, you're so focused on that.
Yes, yeah. It drags us down so specifically, and that's why the prison image came up. We cannot easily get out of that place, and it's a hard. I also feel it's hard on one's body because I can feel tension and then going on in their body, in the individual's body, that's very stressful. It also looks like their visage, their attention is brought down to this little dark place, which. And that it can go, it can just get repeated and repeated. It's hard sometimes to get out of that. And it starts, there's a brain component, a thought component of replaying that churns up the emotions as well. It doesn't feel good. It's not a good place to be. And they're saying, it's a big waste of time.
You're literally reliving the experience over and over and over again. That is kind of the prison, probably, because you continue to think about it. You have all the the responses, reactions that you had.
Exactly.
Kind of
and apparently one often will add little tidbits to what the
I forgot about. I'm adding to.
I'm adding to.
Okay, gotcha.
It feels like making things up can be attached to that as well, in a way that makes it even worse, so to speak, or justifies your feeling, quote, quote, quote. but that is beyond what the facts actually were.
They've given, or we've heard kind of the definition of what forgiveness is and what it looks like. What is a first practical step for someone that's having issues, literally forgiving whatever someone, or I guess someone, they're saying a person. What is that? What would be a recommended first step?
Oh my goodness. So we can, because you said a person, they are clarifying, well, some people will, be angry with God.
Okay.
Yeah. So it isn't just an individual, it's some person, entity, something like that people can identify and focus on that is the, they're the victim of that person, individual, entity. Anyway, so forgiveness will certainly set them free if it is an issue of needing to forgive God, because He's really released of their own, from their own prison.
Yep.
Because God is going, I know. It's okay. You just don't understand.
Right, that's funny.
So I think, what did you ask?
The first step that someone might take, because I don't know that it can be, you're in your prison, you open up the door and step right out all the time.
Right.
It's a practice, is it not? Isn't it something you have to continue to tell yourself that is your desire, as opposed to...
It isn't.
It probably can be spontaneous,
yeah.
But anyway.
The goal is to get to the place where it's kind of like you have really shifted to this forgiveness mode. Like nothing could get you out of that anymore.
Right.
Although you're correct that it may not be the first shot.
Right.
It may not be the first try.
Right.
But the first step, apparently, is what you were also asking about, is an awareness of, it's kind of like being an awareness that has shifted, or you become aware that you are so focused on this other person. So the key there is you become aware that you are so focused on this other person. Normally, you would be so focused on this other person that you wouldn't even know you were focused on the other person. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is kind of noticing that you are focused on that other person and how it makes you feel.
Gotcha.
And that can often lead to going right back to being focused on the other person and what they did to you and so on and so on. But the awareness that you apparently come to first is, it's almost like watching from outside. You see yourself having this focused response on the other person, and that allows you to recognize, to be aware of, in every sense of the word, that doesn't feel good.
Right.
And I don't want to do that, or that's not right. Even if it's a teaching, like you should forgive somebody, you have to become aware that you should forgive somebody before you can step into the process to get through that. And again, they're saying that the details are going to be individual because of the individual experiences, but generally it is the letting go that was described before.
Okay. One last question, just out of curiosity, taking it from a specific out to more a population.
Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No,
one more thing. So when somebody reaches that point of full forgiveness, the release for them includes a this is kind of interesting, a feeling of safety from that other person, despite keeping your guard up, you might say. You can keep the guard up if necessary, and apparently often it is necessary. That's kind of interesting. But you can keep your guard up, but from this place of this in concrete safety, like you already, your forgiveness has allowed you to recognize that person cannot get to you anymore. On an emotional level, right?
Yeah. What percentage of the population need to forgive
Well, when we consider we have to often forgive ourselves.
No, that's everybody then.
Yeah. It is everybody, right. And it actually can have to do with our own self-concept and whether we're comfortable in our own skin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is self-forgiveness literally, well, and it sounds like that's where the idea, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because you're literally releasing that
Oh, right.
that energy towards something else or the situation or God. Is self-forgiveness harder many times
Yes.
than?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And was that kind of an intuitive, did that come up spontaneously for you? Because many people find it much harder to forgive themselves.
Yeah.
They may feel they've mistreated somebody else. They
Right.
often mistreat themselves and don't even realize they need to forgive themselves for that.
And I think a lot of people probably worry that we're not being forgiven by, quotation marks, God or something else.
Because we don't deserve it.
Because we don't deserve it. So
Yeah.
what's the thought there? I mean, are we forgiven?
There's can be a lot of emotion around that. They have no judgment. We're doing that to ourselves because we feel unworthy, and therefore we assume that there's some sort of bias or judgment on the basis of the higher energies.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no judgment. The compassion again. The compassion that comes through from them is just huge, and I wish you all could feel it, because there is no judgment. They're just watching us, hoping that we can feel better.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So again, the forgiveness, if we forgive ourselves, it releases us, and they're just happy about that. It's almost like they're just watching, waiting for us to do that.
So when we hear that we're loved unconditionally, that's real.
That's real. That's real, and that's something that we generally kind of like evolutionarily are aspiring to. We
also live unconditionally?
Unconditionally, no judgment.
No judgment.
No judgment, except what is,
mm-hmm.
and work toward,
right.
compassion, peace, no judgment. The no judgment thing seems to be very important. It always feels incredibly neutral, like
mm-hmm.
neutral, like it just is, right? But the compassion is underneath that. Compassion for how you're feeling right now.
Yeah. Okay. Very neat. I think it would be interesting to people to know who we're talking to. Is this just information, or is there somebody specific that we're speaking with?
Well, there are kind of, so the ones that, I think it was information, general information, but it's being supported by various ones who are stepping up to kind of say, well, we support, that's mm-hmm. the way we see things. And these would be what I would call the ascended masters, which can include, they keep saying, and God, but God is like in this wild realm out here, and I'm seeing these individuals, Jesus, Mother Teresa. There are some that I don't know who they are. Somebody looks, Asian, and I just don't know their names.
Right.
But the concept of forgiveness apparently is historically, it's a necessary.
It spans all.
Yes, it covers all bases.
Yes.
So to speak, right? All religions, all philosophies, all faiths.
Very good. All right, that's excellent information on forgiveness, and I think that answers my questions today. Thank you.
Thank you.